Hey guys, Harry here, and welcome to another episode of Harry Talks. You're joined by myself and Bianca Baker, a brilliant nutritionist with a passion for helping out runners. So thank you very much for joining me, Bianca. If you'd just like to say a few words to introduce yourself before we get into a few questions, that would be awesome.
Sure. Thanks so much for having me. So as you said, I'm Bianca Baker. I am a nutritionist here in Vancouver, Canada, but I am also an advanced performance coach, and I work with runners to help them support their bodies so that they're fueling correctly to reach their goals. Yeah.
Brilliant, perfect. And yeah, nutrition is a topic that interests so many people. It's obviously important to every single individual on this planet because everyone eats, of course, but some people take it more seriously than others for whatever reason. But me being a runner and a lot of obviously my followers being runners, it is very important to fuel the right way and refuel the right way. But yeah, just sticking with you for now, what particular areas of nutrition would you say interest you the most? Like what really kind of got you passionate about nutrition? What do you love about it the most?
So this actually started off when I was really little, and I've always loved food. Like growing up, my grandparents were always adamant that we needed to learn all about different cultures and how they ate, and how that impacted how they lived as a society. So that's kind of where my love of food came in. And then I was always a competitive athlete. I was a competitive swimmer growing up,
All
and
right.
so that like relationship between food and how it sustains you in a culture and a society, and then how it can sustain you from a performance perspective, like that was really what drew me towards nutrition as a whole, because of that connection. But in regards to like what actual aspects of nutrition that I really enjoy, I love how nutrition is able to support your body and how you're able to rebalance certain things that are imbalanced, that people aren't even aware are like imbalanced, and how it's affecting their lives. So I kind of like to, it's like a puzzle, and it's like figuring out that puzzle that I love. And then you get to kind of, put the pieces back together the way that they should be. And then all of a sudden people are like, wow, I didn't even know that was a problem until it was
Yeah.
all of a sudden gone.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Like obviously anyone can look up certain things on the internet or hear things from social media. You'll know yourself more than most people how bad it can be a lot of the time, how much information is maybe wrong, and just, generally quite unhealthy to see or do. Me myself, I obviously have experience with nutrition. Some of the things I've done in the past maybe aren't the best. Some of the things I'm still doing now probably aren't the best, but you slowly learn as you go along, hopefully, and you just have to kind of adapt. But I'm sure, as I said, you'll see so many kind of mistakes that are common with runners, especially. Well, anyone especially, but runners, you will see a lot of mistakes. What would you say are a few of the most common mistakes for runners that they make?
Um, so yeah, firstly, yeah, you're totally right. Like there's so much information out there that is not like 100% backed by, science-based evidence. So I think that is the first thing, is you always see people following, those like bloggers that feel like they know what they're talking about, but really they just like to make food and post a recipe.
Yeah,
And so that is a huge mistake. Often I hear, oh, but I went and I was using X, Y, and Z blog, and that's who said I should be eating X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, but what like qualification have they got behind their name to tell you these things?
yeah,
So that is like the first really big mistake. Otherwise, I often just find runners forget that nutrition is important. Like we're so, as runners, and I mean, I've run my fair share. I'm married to an ultra marathon runner. I know the inside, like thought process of a runner. And our first thoughts are always going to be about like training and, finishing strong, like that mental aspect. We often forget that third aspect of nutrition, and how it really can make or break your training sessions, and how it can really make or break your race, until you end up having like curry the night before and you are sitting in the washroom rather than running your race. Like
yeah,
that's when people are like, right, I probably shouldn't have had the curry the night before. And I'm
yeah,
like, yes, you probably shouldn't have had the curry the night before. But unless it's like really, really affecting them in like some really profound way, like runner's gut, they don't really think about it, right? We kind of just think about putting your shoes on and going outside and hitting the road, rather than, how it can actually like impact your body, what you put in every single day, and how long it takes for your body to like actually get through what the meal that you've eaten. So I often find like transit times are something that a lot of people, don't understand either. They're like, oh, but I had curry on Thursday, why would it affect me on Saturday? And I'm like, well, because it can take up to 72 hours to get through your system. Like, it can still be sitting there, you know? So yeah, I think those are some big ones. That, and then obviously like protein, and actually, you know what, the biggest one is that they forget about carbohydrates.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
No carbs. Everybody's like, nope, gotta cut carbs. I want to lose weight. I'm running to lose weight. And I'm like, yeah, but carbs are your friend. Like carbs are what's going to give you energy. If you're not eating them, you're not, you know, sustaining the energy that you need to sustain for this long period of running that you're doing. You're just trying to use your protein and fat. And again, if you don't have enough of that, like sitting in your system, you're going to be using, you know, muscle, because that's how protein is stored. So that's kind of some of the big things. I could sit and talk about this forever though.
No, 100%. I mean, me myself a few years ago, I was on that. You know, I don't need. Well, I was trying other diets basically. It was a lot of high fat, high protein, but you learn obviously as you consume more kind of scientific information, journals. It's just kind of pointless in terms of running ability. Ultimately, you need the carbs there, your main energy source, so stuff like that. It's still so kind of like people still do it basically. People should know really at this point that carbs are, you know, so crucial to your running kind of performance. But again, it's just one of the many kind of myths out there in the community. And as you said, a lot of people will look at, say, a blogger, and just because they have, you know, maybe 1 million followers or whatever, they say the big number and assume, you know, that number correlates to their kind of experience or knowledge, which often isn't the case. You know, someone
Yep.
with 10 followers or whatever on Instagram could know a lot more than someone with 10 million. So it's tricky because, you know, anyone can fall into that kind of trap. It's not until you know, get told by, you know, people like yourself who know the stuff really well, and convey it really well, that people kind of change what they do. Would
Yeah.
you say there's anything that you do now that you still think you could maybe improve on yourself, or would you say you've got your nutrition down to a good day?
Never. Like nobody's nutrition is ever perfect.
Yeah,
Like straight up. There's always going to be stuff for me to improve on. And of course, as the science changes or more science and information comes up, you know, the more you're starting to learn about other things, and the more you're like, okay, well, I should maybe implement more of that or less of this and more of that. Like as the science and the evidence comes through, right? You can only do the best that you can with what you have right now. So I think it's just important to remember that like your body is unique, and that as you move through different life stages, your body's going to need different things. So, for example, like I've always done intermittent fasting. Like it's just,
yeah,
I hate eating breakfast. My body really dislikes the idea of having like to eat a full meal. And I think it's just because when I was a kid, like you'd wake up and you'd be forced to like sit at the dining table, eat your cereal, and then you'd go to school. And
yeah,
I just like at 6 a.m., I don't want to eat a whole bowl of cereal. Like my body has just woken up. Like I got out of bed and now I'm eating cereal. Um, and so it's just kind of stemmed from that. But my body still needs nutrients in the morning,
mm,
right? So it's about finding that balance of like what you enjoy versus what your body needs. And so like, yeah, there's times where I completely forget to have anything until like 10, 11 o'clock. And I'm like, actually, I probably should have had a smoothie at like 8:39. Like, I don't want to eat at 6 a.m. when I wake up, but like 8:39 is a good idea. Stretching after a workout, like I forget about it too, but you know, then I've got to deal with like the lactic acid buildup and the DOMS the next day, that now I've got to eat differently to be able to, you know, help counterbalance that. So there's always things that I could do better with. And yeah, like last night I had a burger
yeah.
because it was great and I really wanted a burger. So like, could I do better? Of course, everybody could do, but it's about making the best decisions you can, like 90% of the time, right? And eating everything in moderation. So yeah.
That's it. Yeah, I think some really good points there. It's all about kind of consistency. Like you can't be, you know, perfect all the time. And obviously some people might not want to be close to perfect. Some people might want to have burgers every day, and that's absolutely fine if that's your decision. So,
Yeah,
um,
no, it's not fine. You're
well,
not gonna live your best life eating a burger every day.
yeah,
But in saying that, like, you know, you've got to do something that fits your lifestyle. So if like the only thing that you can do is get takeout, like just make the best decision that you can with what you have.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, and it's funny you say about the breakfast as a kid. Like I had the exact same situation. Like I'd be having porridge or whatever every day before school, and I just remember thinking, I don't really want this, but as a kid, you kind of grown. you're kind of told you need this for the day, so you're like forcing it down as a kid, and you really don't feel that great. So I actually developed to do intermittent fasting as well, funnily enough. And yes, there'll be days when I don't eat until 1 or 2. Like it can be a 16/8. You'll know the 16/8 method,
Yeah.
which I guess it's got its pros and cons, but yeah, intermittent fasting again, it's such an interesting one. A lot of runners will say it helps them out. Whereas, the sites I've personally looked at, I used to believe it helped me out as well in terms of running. Whereas when I've looked into it in more depth, I'm sure you'll be able to speak on this as well. Um, in terms of kind of performance, it doesn't seem to have too many benefits because basically you're not giving yourself energy for that period of time. It what are your thoughts on that? Would you agree with that, or would you say something
Um,
different?
so it just like it depends, right? Okay, so I would not personally intermittent fast before a long run.
Yeah.
Like if I was gonna go do like one of my long runs close to the end of like a half marathon or a full marathon training, or even race day, like I would not be intermittent fasting for that. However, if you were just gonna go do like a speed work, like a 30-minute run or whatever, like intermittent fasting for that is perfectly fine. But then again, what you've got to remember is that the calories you've burned has also like you're no longer in that rest and digest mode that you want to be in for the 18 hours or the 16 hours, right? The idea is that you are sitting in a really positive digestive mode so that your body is able to focus on digestion and then have a bit of a break before you add more food in. So if you've gone out for a run, you also still want to make sure that you've been eating, within like an hour of that run so that you're fueling post run.
Mm.
So there's also this like you've got to cut that fast down. Like you can't go run at like 8 o'clock, go run an hour and a half, and then still only eat at like 1:30. Like
Mm.
your body is looking for fuel because not only now is it like using the fuel it's stored because that's what happens with intermittent fasting, but now you've like utilized like so much more of that because you've gone and burnt a bunch of calories from doing a run. So you do need to realize that by like going to run in the morning, you have to shorten that fasting period slightly. So yes, it can still count as intermittent fasting, but it would count more towards having like a fasted workout in the morning rather than actually be an intermittent fast because you need to break that fast earlier. Like you can't go and wait till like 1 o'clock now before you go and work out or before you eat again if you've gone and worked out in the morning. So that's kind of where I think a lot of people fall short from the intermittent fasting. Like, yeah, it can be super beneficial from a workout perspective, from a weight loss perspective, all of that jazz, because you're able to like utilize the stores that are sitting there in a more efficient way, and you're making your body work with stores rather than what you've added. So from that perspective, it can help from like a fat burning perspective. It can help, all of that jazz. But you do need to eat earlier. Like you can't just now starve yourself for the next 3 hours. Like that's when it comes down to like actually recognizing hunger cues. I think a lot of people forget what that actually feels like because we've learned to ignore it for so long. So for some people, intermittent fasting, that's super helpful because all of a sudden, like you become so much more aware of like what hungry feels like. But for others, because they're like, no, I cannot eat until 12 o'clock, they feel hungry at like 10, 11, and they've ignored it for so long that it now
Mm.
no longer happens.
Yeah, 100%. It's again, it's such a tricky one because you see so much online that about intermittent fasting that maybe doesn't support the science that's actually out there. And like as you just said, like a few years ago, I was doing exactly that. I'd go for a run about 9 or 10 a.m., finish at 11:30, but I'd still wait to 2 just so I could get to the end of my, fasting period when
Yep.
it's just kind of pointless. It doesn't really help me out in any way. So it's just kind of getting through the kind of myths, I guess, out there and really looking at the science, what supports you. What would you kind of say is the best way to kind of doing that? Because obviously people will be looking at social media like Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is, and some of it, don't get me wrong, is great because there are these people that genuinely know what they're doing and they can
Mm-hmm.
make it look really kind of professional and clear, straight to the point, just as you've done with your Facebook page recently. But obviously, a lot of people aren't doing that, and they're just kind of making up stuff from their maybe their personal experience or whatever it might be. So if you were to tell someone, obviously you direct them to you, I guess, because you're a source of knowledge. But generally, what would you kind of recommend get your information knowledge from? Where would you go?
So honestly, there's a few things that I would make sure that you were checking. Like that would, like, even if you were gonna come to me, like I would still ask you to do the same research on me as you would on anybody else, right? Because I would want you to feel 100% confident in the person or the information that you were getting. So these would always be the first few things I would say to a person to check out, whether you were reading an article, talking to a person, or trying to figure it out for yourself. The first one is to figure out, like, if the person you are speaking to actually has qualifications or is speaking on their own opinion, or like what worked for them. Because remember, what worked for somebody else is fantastic, and I'm sure it'll work for others.
Yeah.
But you can't know 100% that it's going to work for you because, and Harry, you'll know this, I speak about this all the time, like your body is completely unique. And you can stand next to a person who looks the same, eats the same, does all the things the same, and you can still go for a run and have a completely different run on the day. So you guys kind of need to make sure that whatever information you're taking in, it either comes from like a person with a qualification, or that you understand that this may actually just be information from somebody who's saying, like, this is what worked for me, I cannot guarantee you results. So you kind of want to make sure that you know where that information is coming from. You then want to make sure that it's from like a reputable source if you're reading an article. So what that basically looks like is, if you're reading a scientific article or a journal, you want to make sure that the information has been like in a double blind study, especially if you're talking like supplements, things like that. And basically what that means is that the people that are doing the study actually don't know who the study is for or what the study is supposed to like give the result for. So basically what that means is they get given something and they're like, please will you test X, Y, and Z? And then they just go and see. So it's not like, we want to see if this gets to your digestive system, because then they know, like, oh, well, you wanted to go to the like digestive system. They're basically going to get given like a supplement. They're going to get told, like, where does this end up? And now they're going to have to test it to see whether or not it ends up in your digestive system, if it goes to your intestinal system, like all those things. But the results that come of it, it means that they are not influenced by the person that is, paying for the study. It means they're not influenced by what that person's results that they're looking for, because often that is what happens, is you will find like a pharmaceutical company will pay for like a test to be done, and then the test will turn around and say, like, oh my word, you must totally be taking these drugs.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, well, the pharmaceutical company paid for the test to be done. Like, you can't know 100% sure that that's not, like, there was no bias involved in those tests. So that's just another thing, like making sure that the science that you're reading about is actually like done in a reputable way. And it is, whatever information you're reading is backed by a scientific paper. So that, I think, is also important.
Just quickly, that's such a good point. Like, even if you read in a scientific article or journal, as you said, it could be backed by businesses or investors or whatever, and just money generally taught. So you've really got to look. As you said, I remember you mentioned double blinding in your workshop as well, double blind studies. So important, because it just takes the bias out, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Because at the end of the day, if you're reading something with bias, it's always going to point you in a specific direction of where that person wants you to go, right? It's not just saying, like, this is the information, what you do with it now is yours. It is kind of saying, like, oh, but you should totally be doing this because of X, Y, and Z. Like, this is what we found in the study, but that's what they wanted to find in the study. And so I'm not saying this happens in all studies, but there have been studies that when they've gone and like gotten investigated, etc., they've actually found that, those outlying answers that don't fit what they wanted to look like, they've just ignored the outliers so that the result looks like what they want the result to look like. So you've just got to be sure that like the testing or like the research that you're reading is, non-biased.
Yeah,
basically.
100%. Were you going to move on to a second point there?
I was just going to say that, like, so not only, check the person that you speaking to, like their qualifications, and obviously that any research you're reading is, non-biased, but you also need to remember that, like, you are 110% unique. Like, there's not going to be a one size fits all for anybody. There's no pill that's going to fix anything. So you can go and try out a bunch of different diets, and like, there's 1,000,001 now. We've got like keto and like paleo and veganism and all these different things, and all of them can sound really great, but if they don't work for you, that's okay, because it's really like strict rules and regulations around them in a sense, like you can't eat this and you can't eat that, but like your body may just work better differently, and that's okay. Like you just kind of need to figure out what works for you and your body, because it's unique. So nobody's diet is going to be 100% the same all the time, and that's okay. Like it's okay if the person that you want to look like on Instagram is vegan and your body just does not process grains well, and that means that you don't get enough protein in, and so it means that you have to have some animal protein in your diet. Like that's okay. You don't have to be like the person that you want to emulate on Instagram.
100%. And obviously with Instagram, just because someone posts a picture of them, ripped or whatever with 2 pizzas, doesn't mean, well, they're obviously not eating pizzas every day, but people can see that, unfortunately, and think they can achieve this physique or whatever, eating this diet. So that's when it can be a bit dodgy with these kind of pictures and promoting, unhealthy eating at the end of the day. So yeah, it's just social media. Would you say generally social media is positive or negative when it comes to nutrition? What would you say?
I think it totally depends on who and what you follow. I think like personally, like the people that I follow, it's super positive, but the people I follow like grow their own produce and make their own bread, but that's because that's like the industry and the people that like I follow and I'm drawn to, and that's the industry I'm in, right? We are just people that are really, really health conscious. However, like if you're following people that are all about like cutting calories and whatever, and it's all about the number on the scale, and you find that really stressful, it can be a really stressful negative experience. Like you're in control of who and what you follow and the content that you consume on a daily basis, and if you find that content stresses you out, like unfollow that.
Yeah.
I
think people are often shy to do that. They think people are gonna be angry or whatever if you unfollow them. The reality is a lot of the time they won't even notice because the numbers are so big. Oh, wait, were you gonna say something on that?
No, I was gonna say exactly that. I'm like, even if the numbers aren't big, we still don't know who unfollows us. Like straight up, like even if you have 100 people and somebody unfollows you, there is no like special algorithm or filter that shows me like so and so just unfollowed you. Like all of a sudden your number is now 99 instead of 100 followers. And unless I know every single person like personally, that I can be like, Julia, why did you unfollow? Like I will not even know that you unfollowed me. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody knows. So if you don't feel like the content is helping you, just unfollow them. They won't know. They won't know. It's like the best thing ever, that unfollow button.
There are people that say that these apps apparently tell them, but again, I don't know how accurate that is.
If they're using an app, do you really want to be following them? Like if they're so adamant to know exactly who unfollowed them, again, do you want to be following them? Like
it's just so insignificant. If you need to unfollow someone, just do it. Like it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. And well, actually, it does matter because it can really help your health if you're consuming, content that's not good for you, whatever it might be. So yeah, I was going to say fat loss is a topic that really interests me.
Okay.
Basically, I had an injury at the start of the year for 10 weeks, and obviously, my diet usually goes a bit kind of pear-shaped when I get injured. For a lot of people, I guess that's the case. So naturally, I put on a bit of weight. And in the last few months, I've been trying to kind of reduce fat and get back to where I was. Obviously for just general health reasons and because it does help with running generally in terms of speed. So yeah, I've obviously done my research and the best ways of going about this. You'll have your own views on this as well. From what I've found, I know obviously it's not as simple as this, but to lose fat, essentially, you do need to be in a calorie deficit, like an energy deficit. Whatever way you do that, obviously you can do that a load of different ways. You could be in a deficit and be eating sweets all day, or you could be doing it eating spinach. So it can be in a totally different way. But yeah, it's a topic I get asked a lot as well, quite a lot on Instagram. What would you say? I know obviously it's different for different people, but especially people that really don't have a clue with kind of losing weight. Maybe they're not very active at all, and they really want to lose weight. What would you say, like some really kind of good tips to get started for a lot of these people?
All right, so firstly, remember that when you are injured, you need to still be eating calories because your body needs it to recover. So a lot of people get injured and then they fear that weight gain, so they cut their calories quite drastically before they even put on that weight. And that can be really stressful for the body. So you want to make sure that you're fueling for recovery throughout your recovery. So don't just like cut calories before you even added on the weight, right?
That's just quickly, that's such a good point because as you say, some people will do that, but some people oppositely will just eat pizza. Like I always just eat like pizza and burgers, which obviously is a lot of calories, but it's not nutrient dense, so it doesn't really help the recovery process as well as it could do. So yeah.
100%. Yeah, and at the end of the day, right, it's just going to take you longer to recover. So if you're not eating nutrient-dense food, you're not aiding your body in that recovery, like your recovery process can just take longer. And let's be honest, we all just want to get back out there and run. So like just help your body out a little bit and you can get going a little bit quicker. So that would be my first point. Secondly, yes, so you need to be eating in a calorie deficit if you want to lose weight. That is just, the basic simple science of it. And like you said, quality over quantity is definitely going to be important. So you want to make sure that you're getting your calories always from nutrient-dense food, especially if you're eating in a calorie deficit, because it means that the amount of food that you're eating is just slightly less. But you can also get a lot more nutrients and a lot more for your calorie if you're eating more calorie-dense food, or more nutrient-dense food. So an example of that, for example, so an example of that is I had a client who was trying to lose weight a few months back, and I explained to her that you could eat like for 1,200 calories. That wasn't her daily limit, but
Yeah.
1,200 calories can look like almost 2 full meals, or it can look like one Domino's pizza.
100%.
So I'm like, for the amount of calories that you're eating, like one Domino's pizza for like a growing male is going to be like one meal. Whereas, like you can actually get like 2 full meals and maybe even a snack involved at like 1,200 calories.
I think that's generous for the Domino's as well. I've seen like 2,000 to 2,400 to be honest.
I think it totally depends on the pizza you get.
Yeah,
but what I mean is like you can have one pizza or you can eat like throughout the day. Like you're gonna be hungry with just eating one pizza for the day. And yeah, you want to make sure it's not stressful on the body, right? So again, calorie deficit works, but if it's stressful or it's adding stress to the body, like too much stress, the body's going to freak out as to whether or not it's going to get food again, and it's just going to store because it's going to be scared that it's not getting food. So if your calorie cutting means that like you're eating like a little bit of salad and like maybe like half a chicken, like a chicken breast, and like that's all you're having for lunch, and you're doing the same for dinner, and you're skipping breakfast because you're trying to cut calories, your body is going to freak out. It's not getting enough nutrients, and basically it's just going to store anything and everything that you eat because it doesn't know when it's going to get food again, and so it's in survival mode, right? So then you're not even cutting, like it's not worth it. Don't cut the calories. You're not going to lose the weight, especially if you add exercise on top of that. Like the body is going to freak out. So you want to make sure that, yes, you're eating in a calorie deficit, but it's a healthy calorie deficit still. Like if you are regularly eating like 2,300 calories and you cut down to 1,200 calories, it's never going to work for you. Like it is way too low. Like you should be cutting like maybe 300 or 400 calories and just seeing how that works. And if you want to cut further, you do that once you've sat at that, like, you know what I mean? You got to sit at like that 1,900 base for a little while, see if it's working for you, and then adjust slowly but surely. Don't just kind of lose 1,000 calories in a day.
100%. I think that's possibly the biggest mistake. People will kind of rush to restrict and like trying to be in a huge deficit to, obviously get the progress done as quick as possible. But the reality is, if you do that, the chances are, one, as you said, you can go into survival mode, but also, your cravings are going to be huge. You're going to be hungry all the time. The chances are, if you've got any kind of, not as nutritionally dense food in the house like ice cream or pizza, you're probably going to reach for that after a certain amount of time. So as you said, and one thing I've learned, being in a small calorie deficit, just maybe a couple of hundred I've been doing, nothing too big. You don't even notice it because you're kind of eating during the day, low calorie but dense food, as you said, so it fills you up, but it's not, full of calories, whatever that might be. I found actually French toast has been brilliant for me.
Yeah.
It made in a certain type of way, with like a lot of egg whites, low calorie syrups. I know low calorie syrups might not be, healthy or whatever, but ultimately they are low calorie. Fruit on the side, and then obviously bread, and that keeps me full for hours. The calories about 500, 600, but because I'm full for hours, it works really well, and it's delicious as well. So that's another key point, I guess.
That's awesome. Yeah, like I mean, I have a French toast recipe, and what I do is I tell them to make their batter in the blender and add like a handful or two of spinach in there as well. So
Yeah.
it almost like for kids, it's great because you just call it like Hulk toast.
Mm.
Kids like anything that has to do with the Hulk, right? And so basically it now just makes it green, but you're getting like two handfuls of greens in with your French toast as well. So all of a sudden you're hitting all the like the big points that you want to be hitting, right? You're gonna have your healthy fats, you're gonna have your healthy greens, you're gonna have carbohydrates. It's not gonna be too sweet. You get in fiber involved as well. Like all of that stuff is what's gonna keep you full for longer. It's gonna like lower the intake of sugar, like the speed that sugar joins or gets absorbed through, and so your blood sugar won't spike too high too quickly. So everything just kind of stays nice and balanced. And that's the way that you make sure you stay full for longer and that you're not getting those cravings. Because again, like cravings aren't usually carbohydrate based, and it's because
Mm.
you are lacking in that like main carbohydrate, like energy source, right?
Yeah.
So if you're missing that, the first thing you're gonna do is like reach for those chips, the bread, the pizza, because that's what your body associates with like simple carbohydrates that are gonna just spike your blood sugar, but it's gonna give it the energy it's looking for.
Definitely, yeah. And it's crazy, like one slice of bread, depending on where you get it, can be over 100 calories. And obviously, if you're really like craving bread, you can go through, depending on how hungry you are, you can go through six, seven, eight in one go. So, that's six, seven, 800 calories right there. And you're not even going to feel that full, really. It's just eight slices of bread.
Yeah.
So, it is a tricky balancing act, and it's not hard, especially not easy, sorry, especially when you start. But when you learn little tips, like as you said, like Hulk toast is amazing. Like I haven't heard that before. But yeah, it's just simple things like that. Kids obviously love, Hulk, but and they don't associate it with it being like, this healthy, fibrous food, which it is. And yeah, super healthy, gonna keep you full for hours. And it's just finding little recipes like that. You can still have like, say, pizza, for example, but you can make it with alternatives like instead of the bread being, obviously super high calorie, you can have, I can't remember the name of it now, but basically really thin crust um, alternative basically, and then the toppings can be, there's little switches you can make basically that you'll still have a nice meal and it can still be super healthy, but ultimately the calorie count will be a lot lower than it could
Yeah,
be.
totally. Like you can go and get like whole wheat pita from the store. Like, whole wheat automatically would mean that it's gonna take a little bit longer to digest. So even just whole wheat pizza breads and you just like make your pizza on top of that will change the way that it digests in your body like tenfold. So again, you don't have to like revamp your entire diet. It's just about making like small little substitutions here and there that all of a sudden will make it a little bit healthier and just, support your body a little bit more. Like,
100%, yeah. And
yeah.
and I find as well, if I do go through a period of eating, not very well, like the last time was the injury period, and then I go back to kind of eating fairly healthily, lots of fruits, veg, your body almost doesn't crave the, kind of bad stuff anymore. Like I don't like using the word bad and good for food, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
The more healthy stuff you eat, the less you crave, because your body almost responds to that. It knows it's good for you. So it's not craving the pizza. Like I don't really crave them. I still enjoy them, don't get me wrong, but I don't crave them all the time. So
totally. And I mean, like I said, last night I had a burger and it was because we
yeah.
got home and I was like, oh, what are we gonna have for dinner? I was like, you know what? I really want to put my face in a burger and fries right now. That sounds wonderful. But like it's probably the first time I've had a burger in like 3 months because
Mm.
it's not something that I'm like, oh, we going out for dinner or like let's get takeout. I want to have that. Like I always will pick something like a poke bowl or, you know, like something a little bit more nutritious because that's what my body craves. But we've got to remember that like it's taken months and months and months or even years for some people to get to the point where we want to change our diet. Like it's not going to change overnight. It's going to take months and years to change that, right? Like, you know, like you've been eating healthy food and then you just had a small period where you were, you know, injured and now eating badly. So when you started eating healthy, it probably took 2 or 3 weeks before your body was like responsive and not craving all the bad stuff anymore. But it was also because your body knew what healthy like felt like. And so it was excited to feel that way again. But if it's only eating bad food, and again, bad food for like quite a period of time, it's going to take a period of time to feel like fantastic, right? You're going to have to like detox all those, you know, like all the toxins and things out your body, and you're going to have cravings and you're going to want all the things. And it's going to be tough to find those substitutions that work and become like the next habit and routine for you. But it's totally worth it. Like it may take a month or two before you start seeing weight drop off, but when it does, it will, you know. It's just about like giving your body that time to like adjust to the new normal, because it's normal as eating, you know, pizza every day. So it takes time.
I had you mentioned Domino's. I had 8 days in a row of Domino's during that injury period, so it wasn't a good time. So I'm glad to be over that now, definitely. But
that must have been a really expensive 8 days, Harry.
Yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It was a rough time of the year, but yeah, as I said, we're over that now. But you know, there are people that will be having pizza, not every day, I guess, or I'd hope, but fairly often. So as you said, it's a process, kind of changing things slowly but surely. But yeah, and it won't be instant. Like you won't feel great after maybe one day or a few days. But it really is worth it, because you will start to feel brilliant if you can do it. And I think with runners especially, a common mistake, I'd say, I know we mentioned it at the start. If you go for a run, you can eat what you want and you won't put on weight, which just simply isn't the case. Like, of course, running is great for calorie burning. Don't get me wrong, but if you burn 500 calories on a run, a Domino's pizza's 2,000. It's not going to work, is it? So,
but why did you go for the run, bud? Like, woohoo! You got whole 2 slices of pizza for your run, like.
But people just don't think like that, so it's just getting the message across. But yeah, just to kind of finish with, thank you so much, by the way. It's been really interesting so far. Going forward with you personally, do you have any goals with regards to like anything you'd like to share regards with running or your business or nutrition? Anything like that would be awesome to hear.
Sure. So in terms of running, I had signed up for 3 half marathons this year. They've all been cancelled. So from a goal perspective, there's not many right now, just because, COVID has removed all of the opportunities, and doing a virtual run for me is quite hard. I really prefer the race environment to run in than I do on my own, but hopefully a park run will come back soon. Yes. And I'll be smashing out some 5Ks there. Otherwise, it's really just staying fit and healthy and just, enjoying movement and like allowing my body to do something that feels really good and natural. So that would probably be a really big goal for me right now, is just to continue moving, even though it's hard and there's no big, like shiny medal at the end.
Yeah.
But other than that, from a business perspective, we have just launched the Nourish Method, which was a workshop we just did for 5 days, and that moved into the launch for the new Well Nourished Method program bootcamp that I just launched the other day. Harry, you were a part of it. It was great to have you there.
Thank you.
And so basically what that would entail would be, like one-on-one coaching in a bit of a group setting to allow for that community and environment to really ensure that we're diving into the issues that you face in your own body, and, make sure that you're eating for the uniqueness that is you in a really supportive and healthy way. So that was a really, really cool thing that's just happened. So we're going to be getting through the next 6 months with the clients that have just signed up, because it only happens once every 6 months, the sign up process. So that will come back probably around January. So it's just about getting set up and working with some new clients, but my book's always open. So that's the next one, just to make sure everybody knows that, if you want to work with a nutritionist who gets the uniqueness that is each and every individual, you want to just support your body for healthy, performance and healthy living, then yeah, my books are open. So you're always welcome to just book a free call and we can jump on and see if we're a good fit for each other. But yeah, those are probably the big goals for right now, is just to make sure that the clients I have right now are really looked after and supported in their journey.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I know you had, I can't remember the name of the girl you had on the workshop, but she came on and had a conversation with you and said, how beneficial it was speaking with you and how much she's progressed. So, I'm sure that's the case with a lot of people you've worked with. So just stuff like that is great to see, really. But yeah, sorry, I can't remember the name, but
Catherine, yeah, her name was Catherine, and she was amazing. She actually had only worked with me for a couple of months, and yeah, COVID happened, and so she asked if she could take a step back, and I was more than willing to help, like, have her do that. And yeah, she came back and she was super excited. So she signed up for the whole workshop all over again, and we're going to be working together for another 6 months. So it's phenomenal. But she's seen some crazy results in the first few months. Like, her digestive issues were real whenever she would run and whenever she would work out. And so to be able to really, get that under control in just under a month was pretty epic. So yeah, it was really
brilliant.
cool to have her chat to me. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Awesome to hear stories like that. It really is. And yeah, just quickly, where can people find you? So on Instagram and your website, I'll link it all down below. But just quickly, where can you find yourself?
All right, so I am Bianca Baker Nutrition on Instagram. I am also Bianca Baker Nutrition on Facebook, and you can find me at my website at www.biancabakernutrition.com.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I'll link all of it in the description, and you'll see me sharing a lot on Instagram, and obviously this will go on YouTube and potentially Instagram as well. So thank you very much. One final question I ask everyone. What quote do you use a lot or maybe live by?
Oh, so I actually, you know what? This is going to be very cheesy. I actually have a tattoo.
Don't worry, there was a guy that used one from Frozen 2 the other week.
Oh, really? That's phenomenal. Actually, I'm going to go listen to that just so I can see the Frozen 2 quote. So I actually have a tattoo, and it says, "Learn to live another day." And it's super cheesy. It's from a Bryan Adams song. And basically it reminds me every single day to live the day that I was handed to me, rather than, assume I know what's coming. And I kind of do that every day, and I kind of think the same way when it comes to like food and nutrition. And it basically just reminds me that each day is unique and each person is unique, and that it's really about how you perceive the day and how you live it, that it's going to be, what it is. So kind of like you've been handed a deck of cards, you sitting at a poker table, and you can only play the cards that you've been handed to you, right? Whether you fold or you pull in or whatever it is, like you've only been given that for the day. And like each day is a new kind of hand that you get to decide how it plays out. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, as you say, it's all about perception, really, isn't it? How you view things, especially in the current climate with, everything going on in the world. But yeah, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for coming on today. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's been all right.
Totally. Thanks for having me. It's been so fun. It's been great to chat to you. It's actually really cool. Like, just be able to sit and talk about this kind of stuff. It's always fun. So I appreciate you having me on.
No worries at all. And it's cool, obviously, we're the kind of opposite side of the world as well. So working out the time zones was interesting as well. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to anyone that's watched as well. As I said, I'll be sharing this on a few different platforms. And yeah, thanks again to Bianca, and we will see you next time.